Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, as always, Mr. Sean Cunningham, news. Boy, did I just mess it up? ABC.
You
10?
did. You did.
ABC 10?
ABC 10. Yeah.
Ah.
You were doing so well.
Oh, it's so hard to remember, Sean. I'm so tired.
Tired.
Yeah. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm actually doing pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. And it sounds like I'm not, because it sounds like I'm riddled with COVID or some cold or something. I get bassy this time of year, and sometimes I lose my voice. And I'm holding on to the voice pretty good. So, yeah, I feel great.
Sean's going to find a karaoke bar tonight and sing something sultry.
That might happen definitely Friday because of the New Year's festivities. And, it'll be coming after a game. So win or lose, I'll be ready to tie one on.
Yeah. Are you a New Year's celebrator, or do you go out and go all out and go crazy?
I have. I would say usually no. I stay home or have a little, small get together in normal times, because I used to, I go by the whole moniker that New Year's Eve is for the amateurs. Find me on a Wednesday night, just a random Wednesday night around town. I can be peer pressured, because peer pressured is an MFer, and it definitely can bring me into a into the spirit of kicking rocks to another COVID riddled year. That's for sure.
Yeah, we usually have a pretty tame New Year's, but we typically go to a friend's house, and we try to be in somewhere planted by 10 o'clock, and we don't leave, and we've been known to drink a little bit. Yeah, that happens, but it also happens on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, like what you were mentioning. So yeah, Sean, we're not huge. I don't think I've been to a New Year's Eve party in a long time.
Yeah,
which is probably a good thing, especially nowadays.
They're so much fun, but I can't. I will say this: even when I was younger, I had some. Everyone's got those relatives in their family, and I think, and it seems like I always reference a movie. So I think the relative in the family that I'm trying to reference is the Uncle Eddie character in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yep. Okay.
Where they're just a little bit,
a little odd,
little different. And I had that type of beautiful soul in my family that just, when it came to New Year's, they were always down. And it'd probably be the one of the few times you'd ever see them in the year. And for whatever reason, they're celebrating. Anytime came to New Year's, they had to celebrate by banging the hell out of pots and pans that you have in your cupboard. I've never understood it, and noticed that in my cul-de-sac in Elk Grove, where I used to live, they would all do the same thing. So banging pots and pans is evidently a thing, and I just never understood it, even as a young child, where everyone's celebrating and they start banging the hell out of a Teflon frying pan, and I'm looking at them with absolute bewilderment, going, what the hell are you doing? But apparently it's a thing. So do you bang pots and pans? I don't.
I think that's better than firing a gun. I've been when people do that, and you're like, okay, that's
yeah.
Where's that bullet gonna come down? I don't know.
Yeah,
that seems a little strange. Yeah, and then I was at a New Year's Day party where they fully brought out guns, and I'm like, this is crazy. We had a chili cook-off, and I brought chili, and then out came the ARs, and I'm like, what in the world?
Wow. ARs.
Yeah, it was some crazy stuff. That's the only time I've shot an AR, and yeah, those things are pretty crazy. Yeah, absolutely. From 150 yards, it took me about 3 shots to find my bearings, and then I was able to hit a golf ball 3 times in a row.
Oh goodness.
From 150 yards. Yeah, it's like shooting a BB gun. There's no kick, there's no nothing. It's bizarre. Yeah. So
I think I'll handle the pots and pans over the AR.
So go back to your pots and pans.
Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Talking about loud noises, the Sacramento Kings, Sean, it feels like every time we do the pod, because we do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're either in the darkest of darkest times.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, we're like, oh, please step back from the ledge. Or We're streaking.
Absolutely. Bang some pots and pans after Chimezie Metu's heroics.
Yeah. You know what? Chimezie is such a nice young man. He's like we've covered like a lot of different guys. He's very I don't even know how to like he's astute, he's articulate. It's almost like you're talking to like I don't know, someone who's like getting their PhD. Like he really really likes to explain things in an interesting way. Um and for him to have a moment like that, first of all, Sean, what in the hell was Chimezie Metu doing on the court?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
We were looking at it. I was like doing math, and I was like, oh, there comes Buddy. That's what we expect. Up there's Fox, there's Haliburton. Okay, we expect that. And there's Harrison. Yep. And I'm like, is that Metu?
Wow.
Who had hit 2 3-pointers already?
He had.
Okay.
26% shooter from 3. After last night, I don't know what he was before. It's probably 24, 20, 23 points something.
He wasn't going to stretch the floor because his defender completely left him.
You know what I thought, Sean? I thought they were going to go to the lob. I thought that's what they were going to try to do. You remember the Metu lob where Fox missed him underneath, and then for the game winner. I thought that's what they were going to do. They were going to start Metu way up by the mid-court line, and then just have him sprint and back pick and throw a lob to him for a big dunk and get him free. And then that's not what happened. And I was as stunned as anyone. So people know, we sit directly behind the visitors bench, but at the top, like the top of the lower bowl, we're at the mezzanine level, and we're looking. So that shot,
we can just call it the Mezzi level.
Yeah, the Mezzi level. We're at the Mezzi level, looking right down. We could see his number, like it's right in front of us. And just a very, very well thought up play. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you caught this, but both Alvin Gentry and DeAaron Fox said that they originally drew the play up for Haliburton. And when they ran the play originally for Haliburton, they got the foul, right? So I think Gentry, like that was some next level chess. They ran the play for Haliburton because they knew that that they had one to give, right? So they knew that a foul was coming quickly, and they also knew that Haliburton's a much better free throw shooter. Then they ran the same exact play, but they swapped out Haliburton for Fox in the set. And so we had this really, really well run play that as soon as Fox got it and hit the gas, he was by him. That to me, that was like,
oh yeah, he blew right by him.
Yeah, he blew right by him. So I almost expected like a reach foul or something. But of course that didn't happen. And then Powell slides over and leaves Chimezie. And Sean, the pass was so perfect.
Oh, he threw him a seed, and the angle that I had of shooting it, I kept thinking, man, boy, that is a really tight window. Because and again, my angle looked a little bit different than what was shown on TV because there's no cameras on the side that we sit.
Yeah.
So that's what's so kind of unique about that. And we've been able to shoot, a Harrison Barnes game winner there. We've had several game winners where inevitably it's on the side of the floor, and it just ends up being such a great angle. And yeah, well, just an incredible pass. And one of the things that kind of came to mind too that happened before that play, and you mentioned the play that went to Tyrese. I remember seeing DeAaron gather Tyrese, get Harrison and Buddy, and he's saying, hey, they have the foul to give. Make sure you're shooting. And, that was an instance in where Tyrese was trying to make it look like he was shooting, but the foul happened the split second, like he was just a little bit too slow with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also coincided with, I believe it was that play. Maybe it was the play before, where Dorian Finney-Smith fouls out. A terrific defender. They're easily their best defender. and he had been riddled with, I keep saying riddled. That's like the third time I say riddled, but he'd been plagued with foul trouble all day. He fouled out on that play. And I thought it was so unfortunate for Dallas because now you've got your best defender off the floor. And I wonder what it would have looked like differently had Finney Smith still been on the floor. Because as you may point out, yeah, it was supposed to go to Tyrese. Then they make an adjustment. Tyrese at that point is now on the other side of the court, which I didn't totally agree with. And because each time you had Harrison inbounding that ball. And as you look at the anatomy of the play, I haven't really seen an angle yet where you really see Tyrese in the play of the play itself. So as you point out, James, were we both kind of surprised to see Chimezie Metu on the floor? Absolutely. But now you almost look at it like you've got three players because Tyrese is on the other side of the floor. He drew a defender away. Metu is almost just going to be left completely alone because you have now Fox who's penetrating. And then I thought it was weird that Fox looked at it, he's like, well, I had two options. I was either going to pass it to Metu, which he did, thankfully, or I was going to try and hammer it over a 7-footer and maybe draw a foul, maybe complete the play. How often do you just not see? Look, referees just swallow their whistles in scenarios like this. And you know, of all the times where we're always talking about, hey, guys, take it to the paint. You got to get it to the paint. Try to get to the free throw line. When you've got 3 seconds on the clock, that's usually not the time to do it. You know, usually it's to go. You have to try to make a play. And who's the guy we're always talking about? DeAaron Fox, who usually gets into the paint. It's like, DeAaron, you need to try to score. You need to not try to draw the contact, because if you try to score and the refs look at you as a player who's making a natural movement and trying to score, that's what's going to draw the foul. You know, that's why these players like historically Kevin Martin, James Harden are so good about getting the free throw line, because yes, they are deceptive, but they're always trying to score the basketball usually. And in a play like that, I thought it was, I was almost like, wow, that's not the play I would have gone to. I actually love the fact that he got past there. I thought it was going to be a kick out to Barnes, because what do they always say? The inbounder is always the most dangerous player on the floor at that moment. And Harrison was the guy to inbound both play. He certainly we've seen him hit that shot against Cleveland with a full court pass from Fox. So yeah, just an absolute dime of a pass. And I thought it was going to go to Barnes. Metu's wide open, drills the shot, and then chaos ensues.
Chaos. Total chaos. And now look, you made a really interesting point there that Fox, there's a good chance that if Fox did go right to the rim, that he would, even if he got fouled, he's not going to get the foul. I mean, and even like when Marvin Bagley missed a tip in a little while ago, a couple of games ago, that would have led to a Kings win, right? To me, he clearly got fouled.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
There was no question. And you know what? From the 14-second mark on of the 2-minute report, there was nothing. They didn't mention it at all. They didn't even say there was marginal contact. They just ignored it. So I'm going to add another layer to what you're talking about when it comes to the officials and whether or not they would have called a foul right there. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted out this morning, 25 of the 70, is that what it is? 25 of the 70 active NBA refs are in quarantine. They're in NBA health and safety protocols. So you're looking at a huge percentage of regular referees, and they're filling those in with G League officials, which I think we saw the night before. Like that, there was some horrific calls. Even in that game last night, Sean, the Porzingis flopping in the first quarter, where they were in the penalty with like 7:30 left in the first quarter, and the Kings they'd already committed 5 team fouls. That to me, it was just crazy. And watching Porzingis flop one time after another, I was like, holy cow, what is he like sitting there? He's the understudy to Luka Doncic.
Yeah,
that's what he is. Like,
well, he had his own masterclass last night. I mean, that's in just deceptive movements. He literally put on a masterclass for people. And the crazy part was, because look, you know me, James. I'm not usually a person that harps on the officials. I really am not.
Yeah, I'm not
Last night, the officiating was pretty terrible. But I will say, I didn't feel it was bad when it came to Porzingis. It seemed like every single time you'd see a replay, and Porzingis, for the most part, was really, really good in getting the Kings to react to his motion. He's an enormous human being, right? There are moments where, I mean, we were laughing about like, oh, look at this IT and KP two-man game that they got going on. You know, a guy who's 5'8" and a guy who's 7'4" or whatever the hell he is. I mean, just an incredible visual. And he was so good at getting every Kings player to react to his deceptive movement. And more times than not, I can think of maybe just one or two where it looked like, okay, where's the foul there? That's completely phantom. But more times than not, yeah, he got the Kings to commit, and it was like a masterclass. He was brilliant.
I thought it was interesting that he kept doing it early, and then he flailed on one on the baseline where I think either Chimezie or Damian Jones smacked the ball out of his hands, and then he stopped. It was like, okay, they must have told him, hey, dude, we've had enough.
Right.
Like someone must have said something to him, because after that we did not see the like he was flailing. Like it was pretty stunning to watch him just acting like an idiot half the time. And you know, so maybe I've gotten too used to a team that doesn't do that doesn't draw the foul like they should, you know, even throw the head back, you know, whatever it is. You're not getting enough of it. And then I could also see that Tyrese Haliburton just started flopping all over the place. Like, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
And then he didn't get any calls, and he kept like, why am I not getting the calls? It's like, well, because you're not Porzingis. So, and you know, it was crazy. At one point, they ran Porzingis and Moses Brown on the court together. Like you had a 7-3 and a 7-2 on the court together. It was absolutely crazy. Like super, super big team at one point with Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, that's one way to make up for a lack of size.
I guess. Like, and Isaiah Thomas, like he looked okay. Like he hit a couple of shots. Well, maybe just one. I thought the Kings played him every time he went in the game. You saw that Davion Mitchell was going to go in the game, and
he had a really beautiful little layup against Fox, I thought, on our end of the floor. And for a guy who literally walked off a plane at 3:30 to play in a game 4 hours later, you know, that was. And not know anything, not know any of these teammates. I was a little surprised that they went to him as much. There was a moment where I was like, well, maybe they're not going to go to him, and they did. I mean, he ended up playing like 13 minutes. I thought he looked pretty effective. I think you'll probably see a little bit, depending on if anybody comes out of these health and safety protocols for Friday's game. I think you might see a little bit more of him.
Well, I would love to see him back in the league full time. I don't get why he's been out of the league. To me, it's a travesty that guy's not in the league. Okay, so. Let's get to some of the other stuff here. And one of those things that I think really stood out to me was the fact that DeAaron Fox made the pass. And I mean, it was such a bang bang play. It was a 3.8 seconds. They got the inbounds. Fox bolts around. You know, he's flying up the left side. He fires his bullet. Metu releases the ball, and it was probably the quickest catch and shoot I've seen from a Kings player in like 10 years. I don't know why they don't catch and shoot like that all the time, but they certainly don't. They don't. He releases, the ball's out of his hand for probably, I don't know, probably 3 feet, 4 feet out of his hand. So it was clear the whole time. But in order for that to happen, it took no hesitation from anybody. It had to be perfect in order for that play to work. And for me, I thought that, first of all, Metu told us in post game that, hey, DeAaron Fox had come to me earlier in the season in a very similar situation and said, look, this is what happens on that play. I will, if you're open, I will hit you. So be ready. And so I thought that was a really cool thing that Fox had set it up beforehand, and that Metu had struggled. I mean, he hasn't been able to hit hardly at all from three in the last like 2 weeks. And all of a sudden you have DeAaron Fox making the decision to fire to a guy who again, he's probably more like a 32% 3-point shooter if given consistent minutes. But because of inconsistent minutes and inconsistent play, he's more around where he is right now, 24, 25, 26%. But I thought that like we keep asking this question, Sean, about leadership. And these are ways in which I think that this is how DeAaron Fox leads. He has these discussions beforehand. He has the discussion that you're talking about, where he's reminding guys, let's make sure that you're in the act of shooting, right? We have the moment where Tyrese Haliburton says, hey, right before the last game, DeAaron Fox like tapped me on the shoulder in pregame and said, hey, keep doing what you're doing. So we have all these people out here that are so concerned about the way that DeAaron Fox leads. He's not a leader. He's, trade him. We're seeing that craziness all over the place. But I just think you have to change your understanding of what leadership means. And like, I think everybody works who works a standard job, that you have your leader or the person who's a manager, but then you also know who the best worker is, or who the person is that you go to, or who the person is that you can rely on. And it's not always the quote unquote leader, your store director, your store manager, or the floor manager that's working that night. Sometimes it's somebody who just is way better at having conversations and dealing with stuff. And I just, we look at this team, and I think the biggest vocal leader that they have is Tristan Thompson, who just doesn't play, especially right now. He's not playing at all. You have your diplomat, which is, of course, Harrison Barnes.
Senator Barnes, please.
Senator Barnes. You have
Yeah.
the guy who is so gifted at talking, and that's Tyrese Haliburton, but he's still a young player, and he's still immature in some of what he says, although some of what he says is absolutely brilliant. You got your guy like Davion Mitchell, who is a leader by example on the defensive end. You got Rashawn Holmes, who's like the heart and soul of your team. So we keep talking about these. No one is Draymond Green. The Kings don't have that guy. And neither does like 25 other teams in the league. They don't have a pure guy like that who just owns the room and takes control and is that guy. And I'll even say this, Steph Curry is still the leader of the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
Draymond is the noisy guy. So yeah,
but
he's still a leader.
Yeah. It's like the good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. So my point is, I think we're missing some of what DeAaron Fox brings. And I wrote on it today for the Kings beat, but I really do believe that in the end, we need to appreciate who DeAaron Fox is for who he is, and not worry about who he's not, because that's a problem.
It goes to what you're saying, James, and what we've talked about before. It's like, it's great to see the vocal people step up and try to be that guy when they're not the best player. Like, there's a difference of having your best player be that quote unquote tangible leader, the ones that fans and it really kind of comes across on television and in person, where you're like, oh man, look at this leadership. He's literally talking to everybody. He's going to every single player, having conversations. He's the one that's going to the officials and talking to everybody, which last night DeAaron did a lot of. Like, DeAaron realized that this is not a typical officiating crew that we're used to, and he was lighting up the officials early, and so was Alvin Gentry for that matter. But the person on the court, like, I was surprised that Fox didn't get a technical. But the one thing you're right is it just has to, sometimes it needs to come from your best player, because people want to see that alpha male behavior from the best player. And I think Fox knows not only who he is, because he's very comfortable in his own skin. Some people would call it a little too cool. But at the same time, I think he tries to pick and choose his spots, because if you have someone like Draymond Green, or just to use that example, that doesn't work for everybody. Like, that can really grind down over the course of a season, just all the time. When you have someone who's empowered like that by the head coach and the real leader, which is Steph Curry, the best player on the team, and likely in the NBA, it carries a little bit more weight to it. Fox has a personality that's very much more, to use the Golden State Warriors as that kind of role model here, more like Klay Thompson. Not to say he's not a great leader, but a more kind of a laid back, passive approach. He wants to see all his guys do well.
Yeah.
He wants everyone to enjoy themselves. But when it comes to a moment, like, he'll pick and choose his spots when to step up. Klay steps up a lot. Like, he's a very vocal presence but a lot of it is done behind the scenes. And I think that's what we're hearing more of is DeAaron Fox choosing those moments behind the scenes. He's also still a relatively young guy in the league. And sometimes you will see leaders kind of think that leadership has to come from the experience, the wise old vet, which this team, especially when you've had a locker room where DeAaron Fox was a part of and had guys like Zach Randolph and Vince Carter at one point, and even Matt Barnes and Garrett Temple, or guys a little bit more longer in the tooth that have seen some things.
Even George Hill. Yeah, George Hill was 100%. His first guy.
Yeah, 100%. So not everyone's made for it. And I would say that Fox would probably bristle at the notion that he is a leader, because I don't think he thinks he is a leader. I think he certainly thinks he has some leadership qualities, and I think he knows that his voice is definitely heard amongst the team. But in the whole rah, gonna win one for the Gipper and just spout off and go crazy on a guy, that's obviously not him. And he knows that if he were to do that, it would be completely not only laughed out of the room, but it would be just insincere and be disingenuous. Yeah, and he doesn't want to come off that way. So again, going back to the whole thing of what does the leader look like, I think too many people look at positions of basketball and they go, well, your point guard has to be the extension of your head coach. That whole cliche, point guard has to be that guy. And to a degree, you're right. And I think he is capable of doing that. But it's just different. Like, he is a different type of personality. So I think he can show moments of leadership. I think those are continuing to evolve through his journey in the NBA. But I don't think it'll ever be not only what people want him to be, but I think even coaches. I think you see I don't think it's just fans. I think you'll see coaches and executives want more from that star player. And to me, I think, look, even though you're paying DeAaron Fox and you've referred to him as your head of the snake, you're doing so because he's your best player. You're not referring to him in that regard as the leadership quality, the extension of the head coach. And fortunately, you have put some pretty smart basketball IQ, not to say that Fox isn't, but competitors around him who would be happy to be able to take over that role. Guys like Tyrese Haliburton and even Davion Mitchell to a degree, because we've seen his communication improve over just the handful of weeks that he's been in the NBA. You have seen that absolutely come to kind of bubble up, the qualities that he has, and people know what kind of leader he is. And he's also the guy that has been, even Tyrese has been not only the best player on his team, but have also worn the hat of being that leader in the locker room.
Yeah, I'll say this, like almost every player in the NBA was a best player on every team that they've ever played on. That's just kind of the way it goes. That's how you get to the league, is by being the best of the best of the best. And so you're going to run into times when, you need somebody, you need more from somebody. But Sean, here's my problem. And like, I get, we talk about the head of the snake. I don't think I've ever heard DeAaron Fox refer to himself as the head of the snake outside of him saying, they want me to be the head of the snake. He doesn't walk around with like a DeAaron Fox jersey, but it's a snake and his head is on the top with like pointy, like his old hairstyle. Like, I don't think the problem that you have in Sacramento, and it's gone on forever, is the 25-5 Tyreke Evans, the Here We Rise poster that was 150 feet tall or whatever it was, with DeMarcus Cousins and Tyreke Evans. There's more. They're a super team. They're just young. The Sacramento Kings, because I think it's partially because they cannot sign a superstar free agent. It's never going to happen, people. Maybe it happens one time. And the only way that it happens if it's some rando from Sacramento who becomes a superstar, goes on to play other places and goes, I want to go back to where it all started and try to deliver my team. That's how it would happen. So somebody out there, like, make your kid into that guy so that guy can come back to Sacramento. Outside of that, it's so incredibly difficult to get a pure superstar without drafting him. So this team, this franchise, because they're always mired in this ridiculously long playoff drought, as soon as someone shows any promise, or as soon as someone has like a big smile, they put him all over the building and make him the face of the franchise. And they do it every single time with players who are not ready to be that guy. They're not ready to take on. I think if you were to make Tyrese Haliburton the face of the franchise, you probably could get away with it, because Tyrese is just like, woo, I'm a happy-go-lucky dude. I can sit here and talk about just about everything. And that's awesome. But I still don't think he's as good as DeAaron Fox. He's just not. He's not as good a player as DeAaron Fox right now. And so we have this problem that your face of the franchise doesn't really want to be the face of the franchise, or isn't capable of being what some people want him to be as the face of the franchise, but he's forced into it. And then he's given a big contract and everyone's, oh, well, now he's getting paid. It's like, man, the Kings made him the face of the franchise years before he got paid. So stop acting like he changed because he got paid. He was the same kid. He's just growing up. You made the face of the franchise out of a 19-year-old kid who couldn't go into a bar and buy a drink. So heaven forbid he grows up, he matures, he changes, he becomes an adult, and his temperament changes. Well, I know I'm a lot different today than I was when I was 30 or when I was 18. And I know from 18 to 25, I was totally different. That's just the way it goes. And so we have to stop expecting these young kids, because that's all the Kings can get, these young kids to deliver you and be your savior and be the face of the franchise and be the head of the snake, because you're putting this incredible amount of pressure on a young man for a franchise that, it doesn't matter who is on the court, still doesn't make the playoffs. And then it's like, all right, hey, we need you to erase 15 years of absolute trash. Good luck with that. And so it's hard, man. I get it. I don't know. I think it breaks players. I think there are moments this season where I think it's broken DeAaron Fox, and I don't blame him. I honestly, I blame the franchise and the way that they handle players, and they keep doing it, and they've done it for, over a decade.
So, okay, two things come out of that. And I want to, since you said you blame the franchise for doing that, I'm curious how you feel about, I mean, obviously, look, this gets into what I think this trickles over into something that I've harped upon a few times on this podcast, which is there's an arrogance that come to small successes. Okay. And it's not just the organization, and it's not just fans, and there's media types as well. And I can use this as an example because I've hit upon it quite a few times. There was a media member who thought that the Kings should be better this year than the likes of the Portland Trailblazers. And that I had a problem with that. I had a problem with that because, for one, for the better part of 15 years, which this media member has not been here, but for 15 years, they haven't made the playoffs, which means you're not even in the top half of the league, which is another way to look at it. And coming off of last season, all of a sudden this person felt, okay, Portland's got a new head coach. Oh, well, the Kings should be better than them. You could say so you could say, hey, I think they will be. But for a definitive, and again, I know I'm harping over just one little word here, but the arrogance to think that the Kings should be better than Portland, who still have borderline 2 All-Stars, but one for sure, and who's probably like one of the top 10 players in the league. On what planet should the Kings be better than Portland? When they've never shown that. And ever. The reason I bring this up, as I need to use my cough button. The reason I bring this up, because this member is also within the confines of the organization. And it's nothing against him. I think they're great people. In fact, I'll just say it. His name is Kyle Draper. And I like Kyle a lot.
I do too.
Yeah, I really do. I'm not trying to pick, but it's part of this. There can be an arrogance that comes with just, well, I saw great things last year and this team could be a play. Then just say that. You don't have to look. We all know what a first year, we saw it in Sacramento. We've seen it plenty of times. When a coach takes over a new team, that first year can be a little janky. It's not always, roses and It takes an adjustment. So I understood what he was trying to say. And I confronted him. I said, man, what the hell should? They should not be better than, no, there's no should. So I think it does kind of go into that, because again, you can be excited about a player, but just don't put unrealistic expectations, because in doing so, especially when you have a voice like Mr. Draper does, in doing so, the average fan hears that. And when you fast forward to where they are now, 6 games under 500, and you're just going, what the hell? Now, granted, Portland's not a whole lot. They're mired in the same kind of muck right now. So again, he might be right. And again, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, when you're saying that this guy should be better than all these things, it's like people, they get these unrealistic expectations. To your point, James, about putting a guy on a building, I'm okay with that. Like, the marketing department at the end of the day still has to sell tickets. They need their fan base to be excited. So I'm okay with that. But here's where I draw the line. Don't call this kid a legend. Don't call this kid the best player in the NBA. Maybe don't double down on what every piece of national media that comes out to just show that. I'll never forget this. Let me stretch my legs a minute here, because this one really bothers me.
Yeah, let's get ready. Sean's gonna unleash the hounds. Let's hear it.
I can't remember necessarily which player it was. Okay. But you get essentially your rookie of the year voting. And they, I get it. If you get a rookie of the year, it shows a lot of promise. This could be a budding star. And as you said, James, that's how most stars come to fruition for an NBA team, particularly from a small market team. We all get that. But I would never forget when the Kings organization celebrated the fact that one of their rookies got a third team vote. It was like an all rookie third team, and he got one vote. And there was an article about it on their website, on their social, that this guy got one vote.
They had t-shirts made for the Summer League Championship. They had t-shirts made, Sean. Somewhere there's somebody embroidering a second banner because they won the Summer League. Like, I get it. Like, you're so starved for any success that you like focus on like this little minutia. Right. I get it. But again, all you're doing is these aren't like 25-year-old guys. They aren't seasoned guys. You're taking these young college athletes who just walked around as like the swinging dude on campus, and all of a sudden they're in the NBA, and you hand them a boatload of cash to start, and they're millionaires, and they're having a good time. They're figuring out, travel life and all this stuff. Like, it's so much to take in for a young player. And then you think it's cool. Oh, I can't believe they put me out there on the face. Like, and then the expectations start. There's always strings attached. And, DeAaron Fox was such a disappointment as a rookie. He will tell you that. Like, his rookie season, like, he was so disappointing. He'll tell you, I was horrible. And Tyrese Haliburton was so much better. Fox will tell you, Tyrese Haliburton was so much better than I was as a rookie. But then you get to the second year and the third year, and we start to see the climb. We start to see the epic rise. Well, then it's like, okay, Fox has to deliver us to the playoffs. And, these guys, they keep saying it. Oh, I'm going to be the guy that breaks a streak. I'm going to be the guy that breaks a streak. And they put all this pressure on themselves. And then the second that things go wrong, they fall apart. And I don't blame him. I mean, he just turned 24, like the same day you did on December, what was it, 20th?
December 20th.
Yeah, he just turned 24. And now, like, I think the weight of the world sometimes weighs these guys down so heavily, it just rolls them down a hill, and they can't stop it. And it's tough, man. Like, so again, that's part of my beef. It's that, like, we all want DeAaron Fox to be something. And I don't think that some of the things that you want him to be, he can be. He cannot be a 40% 3-point shooter. I look at some of the leadership things that some people want from him in the same exact light. That's not who he is. It doesn't matter how much he works on it, how many books he reads, how many, podcasts he listened to about leadership. It's not going to be like original or like authentic with him, because that's just not who he is. But what he can be is a guy that quietly whispers in someone's ear, man, I need you to do this, and
Yeah.
I'm going to empower you. And there's going to become a time where I need you to stand in that corner ready to fire, and I'm going to put it on you, and I'm going to send it over there. So my point, Sean, to that whole thing, like when we really get down to it, if Chimezie Metu missed that shot, only one person would have got blamed. One person. And it would not have been Alvin Gentry for having
I was
Chimezie
gonna
Metu
say,
on the
really?
floor.
You don't think it'll be Gentry?
No, everyone would have said that DeAaron Fox didn't have the guts to take the shot himself. That's what they would have said. That's what they would have said, because he's the guy. So he makes a great pass. Chimezie Metu is the hero. There is no winning for DeAaron Fox unless he somehow found a way to hammer a ball through a 7-footer diving at the rim and get an and one, step to the line and not miss a free throw like he did like half the game, and hits the shot and he wins the game. There's no win. There's no win for him, because the expectations are so incredibly high that, they put him in a situation that I don't think that, I don't think almost anyone could win. It takes a special breed to figure out all of it. And, I think Fox is a really, really good player. I think that there's still potential for him to be a great player, but at the same time, I think all of this other stuff, if they were to make the playoffs, it would probably catapult that guy into the stratosphere.
Do you think Fox wants to be great?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You don't think so?
No. I think he'd welcome it, but I don't think when you talk about wants to be great, I don't see that. Here's the other thing, James. I don't see I think he's naturally talented, and I mean, not to say he doesn't work hard, not to say he doesn't, work on his game. It kind of goes to the attitude, it just his overall approach. Like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I don't think I mean, they're obviously paying him like a great player, and he is. He's the best player on the team. But I don't think he cares that he's the best player on the team. Meaning that if they traded for Ben Simmons, he would all of a sudden not be the best player on the team.
See,
in a world
I
where
still think he would think that he's the best player on the team.
In a world where in a world
yeah.
In a world where somehow the Kings keep DeAaron Fox and add Ben Simmons, which I think is a pipe dream. But in the event that was to happen, like, I just don't think he would give a damn. He would go out and compete. He would do he's a competitive guy. We know that. But I just don't think he cares that way. Like, I don't think he puts any type of label or pressure on anything he does. He's such all right, I'm playing basketball. Okay, I'm not. That's just, now I'm going to go work hard. I'm going to go practice. Now I'm not. I
still think he knows he's the best player on this team. And
yeah, I think he's aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that he shows up and he's the best player on the team. And he does the work off the court, I believe, to show up and then be the best player. But he is the best player on this team. And everyone there knows it. Like, that's every coach that walks in the door goes, oh,
well, that's your guy.
Yeah, that's my guy. Like, you instantly see it. You're like, okay, there is something different about him. And so I think that he does want to be great. It's possible he does not know how to fully achieve that. And I also know that in order to be great, you almost have to have like the whole package. Very few players have ever been like just outlandishly great, but not have like, he does not handle media all that well anymore. I think as a young player, he was fun and quirky and super cocky, and came across like just arrogant, but I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoy being around him. That's not sort of the same guy we have now. I think he's grown
You don't think
out
so?
of some of that. I don't know.
You don't think so?
He's bitter and angry like a lot of the time when he comes to see us. And that's to me, it's
well, I think it's because
I
think he expects to be in a different place than where they are. I think there's
like Philadelphia. Like, what does he expect? Like, what do you're
I don't mean
you're
that.
telling me that De'Aaron Fox and Kyle Draper are the same guy? Like, the expect
no.
like, the expectations. Like it's the same thing.
No, like I think he expected to be in a different place, like from a level of success than he's been. Like someone I remember was kind of kicked around online a lot, and I know it has come up, but I don't think Sacramento has broken DeAaron Fox. Like DeAaron Fox still very much wants to be in Sacramento. He wants to be we talked about this. All these players are so aware of the playoff drought and just what it'll mean if, things turn around. Look at, we were talking about the Chimezie Metu moment last night, a game winner. I mean, that was first of all, I got to say, I know a lot of people hate 7:30 games, and I bet they're awful for you, James, who has to drive about 2 hours.
I got home at 1.
Drive to Nevada to go home, but I love 7:30 games, and a good portion of that is because usually it coincides with national TV, but your fan base is so much more loose. Maybe look it up a bit. Like there's a vibrance with a 7:30 game, and I thought the crowd last night was fantastic. Not only the numbers that turned out, but it was terrific. But again, you get this great moment on national TV. Metu hits a game-winning shot. You just see how much people care about this team.
I know.
I mean, look, and I'm not just saying, oh, that was just unique to Sacramento. No other market would celebrate a game-winning shot the way that they do. That's not what I'm saying, but you can see it. You think of all the dreck that's been around the early part of this season, highs and lows. Majority of the time, they're just getting their head kicked in. There's not a level.
Coaches fired.
Yeah, coaches are fired. You don't.
Pandemic.
Even to the point where you don't even have what you started off with, which was really competitive games that went down to the wire. So many games that are just decided with 6 minutes to go already. Like this game's a wrap.
We haven't had to look at the last 2-minute report in like a month. That's crazy, Sean. Right. I know one season we had to look at it like 14 times before we got through December. It was crazy. Every game was that way.
But again, I think going back to DeAaron, like I think he knows he wants to be in Sacramento. Like there's plenty of guys that would welcome trades and want to get out of here, and it's part of the business. I think Fox may be a part of that group as well. Like, hey, if it happens, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not a bad thing. But I think he really wants to make it work here. Like, I really think he wants this to not only be his team, but this is where he wants to be. Like, this town works so well for a lot of NBA players. We've well talked ad nauseum about how well this town works for NBA players in their personal lives. But I think that they adore the admiration of the fans, and I think they do like the fact that they're a little bit hot and cold. I think there's a lot of them that know that they would boo too if they were getting their bag handed to them by the third quarter and this game is now a wrap. I think they appreciate that. There's nothing worse than apathy, or have people that just don't show up. So I think he wants to make it work here. I don't know that he wants to be necessarily this great player, but I think he definitely wants to win. And I think he'd rather it happen in Sacramento than elsewhere, because that's going to reflect on him more than, like, the legacy of his career or the narrative of his career is if he doesn't turn Sacramento, who drafted him and rewarded him with a max contract, if he doesn't turn that franchise around into a playoff contender or a perennial playoff team or even just a playoff team, well, he'll be looked at as a losing player.
No, I mean, that's an honest assessment, Sean. I just looked at the 2-minute report just so people know while Sean was talking. There was one incorrect call, and it came at the 7.8 second mark of the fourth quarter when Richaun Holmes should have been called for a 3 in the key. I guess on the play where Porzingis missed, and the Kings, got the stop. That they actually should have called a 3 in the key on Richaun Holmes. I like inconsequential. They're not going to call that at that point and make it a 3-point game. Sean, I think this is it's a lively discussion that we continue to have about DeAaron Fox and sort of who and what he is and where he's going and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, Sean, I want to watch it play out. Like, I think when I hear Tyrese Haliburton, say, look, why do you guys keep asking about chemistry? Or the new word is compatibility. We have compatibility issues, which is totally different than chemistry issues. They're just totally different. The entire ideology behind them is different. Yeah, like they just, who cares if they haven't had, this is a discussion we were having last night. Like there's this conversation going around in the media that DeAaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton have never had 20-point games on the same night. And like, who cares? Like, I don't care, because Sean, I can tell you that I know that there are a ton of times where DeAaron Fox and Buddy Hield and DeAaron Fox and Harrison Barnes and Tyrese Haliburton and Harrison Barnes and Tyrese Haliburton and Rashawn Holmes, they've all had 20-point nights. That's an anomaly. That it's something that doesn't matter, because those guys have 20-point nights with other people. And for that matter, it doesn't even matter whether you score 20 points or not. The only thing that matters at the end of the night is that you won or lost a game. And so I'm not going to get concerned over whether they are just a perfect blend. They've played like 82 games together. It took Portland like a couple of years to get CJ McCollum up to speed where he could join in with Damian Lillard. He didn't start for a long time. And even when he did start, he wasn't very good. That's not what we're seeing out of Tyrese Haliburton. And I don't think that DeAaron Fox can be Damian Lillard, but I certainly think that Tyrese Haliburton can be CJ McCollum. And so we're seeing this, like, they're trying to figure each other out. They're trying to balance each other, but at the same time, they want each other to succeed. And that's the biggest thing. They are not competing for the spotlight. They both want each other to succeed. And I think Fox said something last night, Sean, that was so intriguing that I think is missed. Like, we get in this whole conversation about why Buddy Hield's on the court. And Buddy Hield's on the court just to stretch the defense. Well, Fox said, they put their best defender on me, which is good for Ty. It opens things up for him. It allows him to play against a lesser defender, and I'll take the tough guy. That's fine. I think we make each other better that way. And I thought that was a really interesting statement. And I think you could take it as he's being arrogant and saying, well, I'm still the best player and they still got to guard me with the best guy. But that's not how I took it. I took it the same way that, when they talk to us about Buddy Hield being the guy who stretches the floor and just the fear of Buddy Hield. Like, I don't know who's fearing Buddy Hield at this point. But somebody might be magically, but yeah, I'm joking. I know that Buddy Hield is like, just the fact that Buddy Hield is on the floor, you have to stand there and defend him. If Buddy Hield was on a different team, I guarantee you this, the Kings wouldn't stand there and defend him, because that's not what they do. They leave that guy open all the time on other teams, but Buddy Hield does get defended by other teams. But I do believe that it's true, when Fox is on the court, the attention is drawn towards him, and it does make life easier. And so we just have to see this balancing out of these guys. And I think that they'll get there. And I think it's going to take a little while, but I think that they will be a really, really solid backcourt.
Do you think that, you think Ty will probably be a 20-point scorer at some point?
I mean, like, we talked about this too last night. I think he's more like, if I'm going to gauge, I think he's more of an 18-point a game guy. But he could sit at 18 for a long time. At the same time, he's going to have to be prodded. I think that the best thing that happened to Tyrese Haliburton was that DeAaron Fox missed 5 games and stepped up, and he stepped up in this magical way and was so good. And it's like, hey, look, man, you showed us you can do it now. Now it's on you to keep doing that. You can't, and that's what Fox is saying. You have to keep doing that. That you can't go back to being a 12-point a game guy. That's not who you should be. It's not who you are. It's just who you're choosing to be. And that's not okay anymore. Now you showed us, and you need to be this. And I'll point this out too. The 5 games before Fox got hurt, he was averaging 26.8 points per game. He was so incredibly good. He had found his game again. So again, if you can get them going together and they're dueling banjos, and we're watching them playing together and playing apart and playing, that's what you're looking for. That moment where they're both succeeding at the same time, and it's coming. It just hasn't happened yet.
The 20-point scores thing is kind of a tired observation. I mean, I know it goes back to even when Tyrese and Kevin Martin were together. There's Tyreke Evans and Kevin Martin were together. They're like, oh, can they coexist? And they had less than a year to do it before moves were made there. But even, I mean, it would even be taking it away from the backcourt. I mean, even how many times would we hear that with DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay? It's like, how many times do these guys score 20? When one doesn't, the other one does. It's a little bit more of a, I got your back, you got my back, but it's so rare when the two of them are just really clicking at the same time. And they carried the bulk of the scoring load. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. It's something to look at, but to me, I think what you're getting from Tyrese Haliburton right now is so great in his sophomore season. If he ever gets his numbers, James, to being 18, even 20 or higher, then you really have a special player. Because right now, just his elite playmaking, feel for the game, seeing the play before it happens, is going for the easy bucket, going for high percentage shots, going for setting other teammates up for high percentage shots that are around the rim, utilizing the 2-man game with the big. I mean, it's such a lost art. You don't see so many of these guys do that anymore. And to me, if he even just doubles down on that element of the game as opposed to the scoring load, I think that would even be fantastic, because then you can find scorers to put around him. So
it's Chris Paul-esque.
Yeah, whether he does or he doesn't, like, to me, you've already won. Like, you already see enough to where if this element goes and you just become a better playmaker, distributor, and you just add some weight to yourself and become a better defender, on ball defender, not the guy that sits in passing lanes and like a safety and just and get interceptions, that would be fantastic. But if he adds any of that as well as a scoring load to himself, a guy who can maybe get to the free throw line more, boy, watch out. That would be tremendous.
I totally agree. In the last 7 games, Tyrese Haliburton's averaging 21.1 points, 10.3 assists, 3.7 rebounds, 1.7 steals, which I think is actually down from his normal number. He's shooting 50.5% from the field. He's shooting, I think it's 47.5% from 3. He's shooting 91% from the free throw line. He's getting to the free throw line more. Like, look, if this guy can be that player, which is what I think some of us saw last season with him, like, ooh, he could be. And I do think he's a true 3-level scorer. I think he can be a guy who you don't want him to be your number 1 scoring option. But I still think he can be a very, very good scorer in the league. It's just, I don't think he's, like, in a perfect world, you wouldn't need him to be. I think, Steve Nash had a couple of seasons where he scored 20 a game.
Mm-hmm.
But teams were fine with Steve Nash scoring 16 or 17 in a game and leading the league in assists and winning MVP trophies. They were okay with him doing that because he was just so good. And I think that that's where I kind of look at Haliburton, like, can he be this good? And so that would be the only point where I would go, if you have to surround him with shooters, well, DeAaron Fox is not that. And so we could come a point down the road where you go, okay, DeAaron Fox is not that, and he can't get better, and he's not getting better, and so they can't play together. But then if you think that, then don't trade for Ben Simmons, because that's not going to help you either.
Yeah, you're going to need shooting around Ben.
Yeah, you're going to need exactly. So yeah, anyway, I think it's all a really good discussion about where Fox is heading. I just think that, like, I want to see Fox and Haliburton get as much time as possible to work this thing out. I don't think that there's any reason to hit any kind of panic button on those two. I think that there's plenty of reasons to hit the panic button on the 2021-22 Sacramento Kings. But that is not one of them, because you're just going to watch them grow and get better. And
that, I will say, that said, what do you got? You know what I mean? Like, no one's untouchable for me. There's nobody that I would, and I think you're in the same boat. I'm with you, James. I'd like to see it. I would like to see it, but there's plenty of moves out there that I'd go, oh, yeah, I'll give you him.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, Sean. You could disagree with me or not. I think that that Haliburton has moved above DeAaron Fox, not as the Kings' best player, but as the Kings' most untouchable player. because you got the, like, he's Monty's firstborn.
He makes nothing. He also
He
makes nothing.
he makes nothing. He's under team control for another like 8 years or 7 years. I mean, basically, because he's gonna, the only way you can get out of signing an extension is to play out 5 years, and so you at least have him for another 3.5 years, and that's not even it. He's gonna be here long term.
Yeah.
He'll be here. He'll be here like, at least for the next eight seasons, in my opinion. I mean, I don't see them trading him at all. And a lot of that's because Monty won't trade him. And as long as Monty's there, now that's a whole nother situation. But if Monty's not there, but I still think that there's just too much there. There's too much like to what you're seeing already.
I love that you called him Monty's firstborn.
Yeah. Oh, did we get Sean frozen?
There he is. We have James frozen.
Oh, look at that. We both froze.
We both froze. Okay.
We're back. You said I love that you called him Monty's firstborn. That's where,
yeah, I think that's hilarious. I love the kind of just the analogy of it, but I also feel like I don't think that Monty looks at anybody as untouchable, and he shouldn't. But that said, there's certain guys that he'd be much more willing to hold on to than others. So, and I think specifically with team control and just the overall impact that Tyrese can have on your organization for the small amount of money that he makes over these next 3 years, James, I think that's obviously the thing that leaps off the page. So if you don't have to, you shouldn't, but that's how you go out and you talked about how do you get a star? That's how you get your superstar.
Nope, I got you. Okay, so let's run through a couple of quick things. Number one, Marvin Bagley. Man, he's so much better this season than he has been in his first 3 years. Sean, I don't care about the 14-7. I don't care about that anymore. He's so much better as a player. Like it's remarkable to watch. He's running, he's jumping, he's flying in from the side for rebounds. He's attacking the rim. It's not always perfect. He can be a little frustrating at times. But at the same time, like just the effort level, everything, the compete level, the way that he's defending. He got 2 quick ones against Porzingis, roped him into 2 quick fouls against Dallas. I saw him learn, and not pick up any more.
When he smacked the floor, that was great.
Yeah, like I love what I'm seeing from Marvin Bagley, and I mean I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I'll tell you, like I think you need to keep your options open with him at this point, just because there's still potential there. I don't think there's potential like I've thought in the past, like for him to be a 20-10 guy. Like I've backed away from that ledge, but I still think that he can help this team.
The thing that throws it to me, it's, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I remind people so much can change day to day, week to week in the NBA, even with a team. And man, all you need is the opportunity. The way he, as you talked about it, James, he's still a young player. And you see these growth moments. You didn't even talk about the outside shooting. I mean, some of these threes look pretty. I mean, they look really pretty. There's some of them that don't. They look like some of the ones that Chimezie Metu has thrown up and look like it's going to knock the backboard down. But I mean, he's so much more consistent with it than he was at the start of the season. I think we're really kind of seeing an evolution there. But to me, I'm more excited about what he's doing defensively. He has just his activity alone is fun to watch. I mean, it looks almost like a baby deer out there looking to walk, learning to walk, but he's so active on both sides. He had a stretch in that second quarter, James, that I think you were right, sitting there right with me. I was just, wow, that was incredible. Both ends of the floor, probably his best 6-minute stretch that I could remember in quite a while. Mm-hmm. And again, I know they put him in the starting rotation these last 2 games, but I'm not saying he has to start, but going back to what I said at the beginning of the year, like you're not good enough to throw away unproven talent. This is an unproven talent. You need to see what you have here. And you need to get to the springtime and know for sure, regardless of all the crap noise that's around this kid, a lot of it self-inflicted, as we well know, but doesn't matter. You still need to know, because again, if someone can have these self-inflicted mistakes, you're just giving other people the blueprint on how to get out of Sacramento, which we
Yeah,
talked about. It's hard to bring people
like the
here.
Emmanuel Mudiay not showing up to work out for Vlade.
Right, you fool! You just gave it away. I'm not going to bring anybody that doesn't work out for me. Why?
Okay, I'm not going to
great.
work out for you.
I'm not coming to Sacramento. I'd rather be in Dallas. Yeah, I get it, but
yeah, Isaiah Thomas just went into health and safety protocols. He will not play against Sacramento Kings on Friday. Yeah,
what a shame. And you know what? I think I think we're probably gonna see some others.
Yeah, and hey, I'll say this too. Like, hat tip to the Sacramento Kings fans. Isaiah Thomas was a good King. He had your back during the entire relocation situation. He showed up at city council meetings. Sean and I interviewed him outside city council meetings. He had your back.
Seattle native shows up to
bravo on the loud ovation for Isaiah Thomas at the game last night. Okay, so let's bust through another quick one. Rashawn Holmes does not look like himself. Damian Jones is kind of storming. And I said this on D-Lo and Casey yesterday. Damian Jones reminds me of, like, with all due respect, a poor man's Rashawn Holmes. Like, he does what Rashawn Holmes does, except for he'll hoist a three. He's 3 of 8 on the season from 3, but the activity, the pick and roll, the finishing traffic, the ripping down rebounds, and then going up hard through people, we're watching him blossom. And I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't know what's going to happen when Alex Len gets back. I know they're still going to do the, like, Tristan Thompson's going to play on occasion. But I think Damian Jones was, number one, a very good gamble at, like, almost free. Like $1.7 million by NBA standards is nothing. But Sean, he's a good kid, like Chimezie, and these guys out there, like, battling and fighting. That's what you need. You need the energy from these young guys.
He's added a nice physical presence for this time where Alex Len has been gone. It also, people forget, when they've gone in these big holes, these deficits, Damian Jones has been part of the group that's brought him back.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Like, to me, if I'm putting my resume or my, self-appraisal together, maybe it's because it's fresh in mind, because I actually have to put my self-appraisal together at the end of the year, every year.
Nice.
Just to remind the bosses how good you are. But yeah, I mean, that's something I'm putting on there. I'm like, when these guys go out and get these big deficits, I'm part of the group that brings them back. I have a positive impact on the game. When we have a team of guys that don't punch back when they get punched, I'm the guy that will definitely punch back. So I do like that. And who knows what we get with Alex Len. He's back and he just looks like a man. I mean, how about this? If there was ever a visual to take it back to Chimezie's game winner and everybody's running out on the floor, just losing their freaking mind, and Chimezie says he blacked out, and just a great moment, right?
Yeah.
The one guy that took about, by the time he got there, it was over. It was Alex Len. I'm not trying to poke fun at the guy because he had a battle with COVID, but these are like the real time effects on how they have on the body. And granted, he's a large human being, so yeah, like, there was just this visual of them all celebrating, and by the time he got there, he's just like, yeah, and everyone's, man, we're done, man. Like, it's kind of over.
It's, again, this isn't funny, but DeAaron Fox, like, he was winded for a couple of games, and I think he's still a little winded. And then he said, Davion, like, called for a sub, and he laughed. He's like, even you get tired. Look at that. Like, the dude, the workaholic who can't stay out of the gym, he's like, you had asked for a sub. And you're like, yeah, I had asked for a sub. That's like Alvin Gentry told us that Davion had asked for a sub, like, the first time in the history of the world that Davion Mitchell has ever asked to come out of a game. He's like, I can't do this. So keep in mind, they are athletes. They are 20-something-year-olds. They still need time to recover. And then on occasion, you get a guy like Terrence Davis, who has no problems and just flies around the court and looks like he's fresh because his ankle's healed up. But again, he had just gone through COVID. So maybe he didn't get as bad. Maybe he just got a false pot. I don't know what it was. I'll just tell you, he looks fresh. Everybody's body's different. And, Alex Len, I know it took him a long time last time. I hope that it doesn't take that long this time around, but it's very possible Alex Len won't play for a while. He's just a humongous human being. And I think it took its toll on him, and him getting out of shape might happen quicker, or it might take him longer to recover than other people. That just, it's
And
genetics.
it's his second time too. Who
Yeah,
knows how
yeah.
that, and
All these
not,
Kings.
I'm wondering about Terrence Davis. Like, I kind of felt
DMP.
like he was back in the rotation, but there, in a weird way, I didn't really miss him last night. I kind of did because Buddy didn't shoot the ball, which is another strange occurrence. That's 2 out of 3 games where he just didn't shoot.
Yeah, but I think Davion came back, and that eats the minutes. There's not. I mean, Mo Harkless isn't playing.
I mean, it did, but he still ended up with. Let me double check here. Yeah, he still ended up with 23 minutes, and he only shot the ball 5 times.
Yeah, that's strange. And then he shot 3 times a couple of games ago.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe he's reeling it in. Maybe he knows that's he's got to be better, and he's got to be more consistent. All right, Sean, we're running along, man.
We are, buddy.
What is happening here? What is happening, Sean?
We do it every time.
We've got to finish with the business of basketball.
Love it.
Sean, we were talking about this. We can be relatively quick with this one. We've seen quite a few game winners. I know DeAaron Fox had a game winner over Philadelphia and Sacramento. We had the Harrison Barnes. Oh no, that wasn't at home. We had
Harrison Barnes had one here. It was against Cleveland.
Oh yeah. Okay, it was
with the beautiful setup, that full court pass from Fox out of the end. That was crazy.
Okay, and then we had, on top of that, we had the Bogdan Bogdanovic game winner. We've had a Buddy Hield game winner.
Bogies was against the Lakers.
We had a Skal Labissiere game winner.
That was nice.
Banging a 3. What's your favorite game winner that you've ever been you've been in the building for? Because I've seen so many, overall, but you were in the building for.
My favorite one, I mean, it's easy, but it happened on the anniversary of Chimezie Metu. I mean, just the Tyreke Evans, that full court, or that, and Dante Green being that, being what Tyrese was last night to Chimezie, already celebrating it before it goes in. That just that way that played out. Just an unbelievable play by Tyreke Evans. And I'm thinking about that too, him getting up on the scorer's table, almost falling over, Jason Jones trying to hold him up. And then he goes and celebrates with his mom and grandma. And I know Tyreke just lost his mom over the past week or so during this holiday. So yeah, it's tough, but I'll give it to Tyreke. That was to me that one that I was sitting in the first level of the upper deck at Arco in the media box up there, and just kind of leaning over. Is it got a chance? Oh, and yeah, it was pure.
I will say that's the same for me. That was my first season covering the team, and I was sitting with Zach Harper and did the same thing. It started. He shot it, from the left side, but it started curving, and we both started leaning like, oh, it's got a chance. And then boom, Arco lit up like candle, just boom, like the whole place lit up. That was nuts. And him standing on the scoreboard, the scorer's table, was amazing. And again, Jason Jones holding his leg, trying almost holding his hand so he wouldn't fall. And people are like, "Oh, you're trying to give him a high five." He's like, "No, I thought he was gonna fall." I mean, look, Arco was jumping up on a table in Arco, probably not your best idea. Jumping on anything, even a seat, probably was not your best idea at Arco Arena in the last couple of years.
After the bucket, I think it was OJ Mayo who hit that shot, and the Grizzlies PR guy walks out on the floor thinking it's like a done deal. Oh, nope, got to come back. DeMarcus is pissed. He inbounds the ball. There's just so many things that happen. And I remember, I mentioned Dante because in the moment I see him hoist the shot. I'm like, oh, here we go. And I'm just thinking it's not going to happen. And Dante caught my eye, but it was quick enough to where the ball's in the air. Dante catches my eye. I look over at Dante. I'm like, what the hell's he doing?
Wandering out onto the court.
Yeah. And then I look up in time to see it go in. And then I'm just like, what? How'd that happen?
How did that just happen? Steven Chia was our cameraman, our photog for Cowbell at that time. And he got this incredible shot of he was way down low shooting up where he had Tyreke walking through the tunnel, high-fiving the fans with Devin Blankenship right next to him, and the scoreboard up above his head where you could see the final score. It was absolutely spectacular. I actually had a poster made of that and gave it to Devin. Really, really cool stuff. So
Devin's also in the Weber tunnel shot, that famous Weber tunnel shot, and he's just looking at it going, look at this. Or he's just in it and he's just kind of taking it all in. He's admiring it. And Devin, the former PR guy for the Kings.
Okay, so that was a short business of basketball. We do have some other things to cover really quick. Number one, sending big love to our friend Scott Moak, who is in health and safety protocols, which he put out there. So I feel comfortable putting it out there because he actually said it out online. He actually left the game on Tuesday night in the first quarter when a positive test came back, I guess. So big shout out to Scott. We hope that he has a speedy recovery. He's a gem of a human being.
100%.
There was something else, Sean.
Well, and the new guy from Stockton, he does the Stockton Kings. He gets to step in. He does a great Scott Moak impersonation. But he also, I told someone I'm a huge SNL fan, and someone reminded me, I don't remember if this is true, and you would think because I am an SNL fan that I should know this, but I think Daryl Hammond actually does the announcer voice for old Don Pardo. He's gone now, and so I think it is Daryl Hammond. But whoever it is, if it's not Daryl Hammond, I think his name is Thaddeus Davis. Is that his name?
Something like that. I heard Thad.
Thad. Yeah. So if he kind of sounds a little bit like whoever does the SNL voice now, the announcer voice.
I don't like how he says Haliburton. It sounds robotic. It almost like a computer saying it. I don't love that. Outside of that, I think he's been really good. It was hard to tell that it was him. It keyed me in. I'm like, hey, they just hit their 11th 3-pointer and no one said, who wants tacos? like we didn't get the free taco call. And I'm like, that's weird. And then you're like, oh, I don't think that's Smoke. So you're zooming in and we're up in the box, like looking down. Sometimes I feel like you and I are like the two old dudes in
the Muppets.
On the Muppets. Yeah.
Well, it was all right. That wasn't bad. Oh,
that wasn't bad. Yeah. Okay. And then one other thing. We hate this. Our friend Mike Wagman loves is it Bing Bong? Is that what is?
Okay.
Oh,
so
gosh. You might need to explain this because I don't even understand it. Like it's god awful though.
Yeah, I like the concept. So unfortunately, if you've seen TikTok or if you've seen any of these, it originated. The Knicks have embraced Bing Bong. I mean, the noise that the meter would make when crossing the street. What is that called?
Bing
James?
Bong.
So they do. Anyway, they've incorporated into that in the crosswalk. They've incorporated that into Madison Square Garden. Not that exact one that you're hearing, but the Knicks will do the Bing Bong thing as a celebratory fashion. Okay. Jesus and Mero, big behind it, and any of those web series you've seen is fantastic. The Kings found it and some of their game night people, and they're like, we're going to just ISO on a person. And
one person. The first game it was Lou Dort.
It was Lou Dort. The first game last night, it was Jalen Brunson. And
didn't work out so well.
I like the idea, and they're open to suggestion. They thought it was great, thought it was a TikTok thing. And I think if it didn't originate in New York in the way that they're using it, because I always say it's kind of like you're biting another team, you're kind of copying another team's style. You kind of want your own thing. So maybe you just got to find your own thing. Maybe it's Beavis and Butthead kind of laughing every time, just the two of them laughing every time a guy misses, and that's a little bit dated for.
I like when they do the Napoleon Dynamite lucky.
Right.
I like that. It's fun.
Or the whatever, if someone has a huge dunk that was great,
and the Black Falcon still. I dig that. It makes me laugh. And
here's another one too. Mo Harkless. Now we haven't seen him on the floor in a while to make a bucket, but there was moments where he would score and you would hear the little love, the Heartless from Kanye West. And the joke is, how could you be so heartless is the hook. and a lot of people go, how could you be Mo Harkless? So
Yeah.
you hear the little instrumental that comes in after he makes a shot. I love that. I thought it was great. They're not the only team to do that, but he's on your team now, so you might as well let it go.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any ideas of maybe something that they could play ISO on a player, pick on a player in a way that every time they miss, you might hear something in the arena. I kind of like the Beavis and Butthead, or even, what's the guy from The Simpsons? Ha ha, whatever. Like, I don't know. Nelson.
Nelson. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
There's probably something much more relevant in pop culture these days, and I usually am the guy that would love to pull something out. I told them they should use the Willy Wonka. Anytime someone misses the half court shot, you get nothing, you lose. Good day, sir. Which I love, but unfortunately, even for people who that get something wrong in the trivia, they still end up giving them a prize. So they don't send anybody home empty-handed. So I guess that doesn't really play.
It's very strange. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so I
Bing
think
bong.
we covered all that stuff. Bing bong.
Mike Wackerman loves it though. The AP
and he laughs. He sits
every time
right behind us, and he laughs every
easily
time.
amused.
And then you can hear him like bing bong, bing bong.
Yeah.
It adds to our enjoyment of the game. Okay, so lastly, June 6th, we have the Kings Beat happy hour, the off the record with the Kings Beat happy hour from 5:30 to 7. That is for premium subscribers. If you are not a premium subscriber, you will not get the link to the virtual happy hour, which is super fun. And Sean and I will be there. We're going to line up a guest. I'm working on that. I don't want to announce anything and then not have them show up and then all that stuff. But it's well worth the time. And everyone had a great time the first go around. So make sure you do that. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and a subscription on our YouTube channel if you like to watch us on YouTube as opposed to listening to us via the multitude of platforms. Make sure you give us a subscription and a like on things like iTunes and all those things as well. Sean, do you have any final thoughts?
Thoughts, totally not sports related. Being the Ricardos, if you get to check that out on Amazon streaming service, pretty fantastic. Aaron Sorkin movie. Nicole Kidman plays Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
Javier Bardem plays Desi Arnaz. I'm a big fan. Love that movie.
Okay, and it's not a series; it's a movie. Okay.
Just a movie. Yeah. So
I saw it on there.
If you're thinking Lucille Ball and I Love Lucy, and I know that might be too old for people to remember, but
I remember.
They have a lot of series of events that happened in the history of that series and their family and their life that they kind of truncate into about a week's time. So they took a little liberty there, but really, really tremendous.
Okay. I will check it out.
And by the time we do this podcast next week, I'm going to give you a review of Licorice Pizza because I can't wait to see that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I think lastly, Happy New Year's, everybody. Be safe.
New Year.
We're not going to see you until after the New Year. So Happy New Year. Hopefully we're talking about I think it'd be a 4-game win streak at that point.
James.
If the Kings, yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna put expectations on anyone. All right. So for Sean Cunningham, I am James Ham. Thank you for tuning in to the Kings Beat podcast. We will see you next Tuesday.